Hello YouTube, and welcome back to my channel. The Lonely Rider is not a professional mechanic and is not responsible for any personal injury or vehicle damage that may result from individuals attempting the repair shown in this video. You have been warned. Try at your own risk. So picture this, you're on your Gixxer, you're cruising down the road, everything seems great, everything's fine, but then all of a sudden, the bike starts to kind of lunge and heave and die and just kind of jerk back and forth and buck on you, and you're like, what in the world's going on? And then you notice your gear position indicator clicking up and down through the gears magically when you're not even touching the shifter, 5th gear, 4th gear, 3rd gear, 6th gear, 2nd gear, 3rd. Welcome to the world of electronic motorcycles. As bikes become more and more electronic, there's going to be all kinds of fluky things that can happen, sensors on their sensors on their sensors, and all kinds of stuff. If I just described your problem, it is most likely the GPS. No, not global positioning system. In Suzuki's world, GPS stands for gear position sensor. Now, in order to understand why that's happening, you have to know how these bikes work. The gear position sensor sends a signal to the gauge cluster to tell the rider what gear they're in, but it also sends a copy of that signal to the ECU. The ECU changes the electronic settings of the bike depending on what gear you're in, such as ignition timing, RPM limit, things like that. So when you shift from 2nd gear to 3rd gear, the computer responds by changing from the 2nd gear settings to the 3rd gear settings. Normally the rider doesn't really notice this, but when the GPS starts to fail, it starts to send a barrage of bogus data to the computer, which is reflected by your gear indicator jumping up and down through the gears rapidly. That bogus data is also getting sent to the computer, and as you might imagine, the computer gets just as confused as you, because it thinks that you're rapidly changing gears up and down, and so it's trying to rapidly change engine settings, which causes the bike to go berserk. The only way to fix that problem is to change the GPS. First things first, you're going to loosen this bolt right here for your shifter linkage. That is an 8mm. Take the bolt all the way out and then just slide it off the shaft. Next, remove the bolt for the speed sensor. That is a 4mm Allen or a hex key, and gently pull that out. Next, you're going to want to remove these 2 bolts holding on the cylinder for the hydraulic clutch. They are a 5mm hex or a 5mm Allen wrench, whichever you prefer. Then pull on the cylinder until it pops out. Now that pin right there goes inside that cylinder. You see that hole right there? So sometimes as you're pulling it out, it might actually the pin might actually kind of want to come out with it and get kind of stuck, so you have to kind of pull it out this far and then try to get like your fingers down in to pull it free from it so you can get it pulled off. Now that those are free, you're going to want to go ahead and remove the other 4 bolts there, and there that are holding this whole case on, and they are all 8mm. Now if you're lucky, you'll be able to just grab a hold of this and pop it right off, but it usually isn't how it works. Sometimes just from being on for a while, it kind of is stuck and it doesn't want to come off. You could either try tapping it with a rubber mallet, and if that doesn't work, what I do is I take a long screwdriver or a pry bar or something, and I will actually go in behind from here, and I will actually pop it loose from the inside, prying outwards. Okay, now that we got all that off, that right there, that is the GPS. That's the gear position sensor. There are 2 4mm hex bolts holding it on. The wire connected to it goes down underneath the water pump, and it has one of those little metal clips holding it onto the water pump, so you got to reach underneath there and bend that clip open to get the wire off of it. And then it comes up, let me move this real quick, and then it comes up actually on this side of the water pump. So this is the wire right here, snakes up behind the fuse box, goes up underneath the gas tank, and if you follow it up underneath here, it is that connector right there. To make sure, you can grab a hold of the wire and give it a good yank, and that is the connector. There is a plastic clip on it right there. You have to push that down to pull them apart, and it is a little difficult to get them apart because it is a tight space, but you got to pull them apart there. Remove the old one, thread the wiring for the new one in, clip it on there, bolt it on down there, and that's it. Alright guys, that's how you get to the GPS on your 2007 GSX-R1000 if you have to change it. As you saw, it's really not that hard to change, but it is a little tricky and it's a little irritating because it's in a tight spot, and of course down in here you have all the grease and road gunk from the chain and everything, so it's just going to be really dirty in there. So it's a little dirty and a little frustrating, but it's not terribly hard. I changed one on my 2007 GSX-R750, and I don't remember it being that bad. I think I had the whole thing changed in about 45 minutes. So there you have it. Good news, guys. I found the pictures of my old 2007 GSXR750 that I used to have way back when, and I actually found the pictures that I took of when I changed the GPS on it. So let's go ahead and look at it here. So here you can see I took the cover off. Now with the 750 and the 600, obviously you don't have to worry about the hydraulic slave cylinder, but you do have to unhook the cable, because it is a cable worked clutch, and the cable is still attached to the cover there, so you have to unhook the cable when you pull the cover off, but everything else should be pretty much the same. So the big difference between the 750s and the 600s is they have the GPS above the front sprocket. So on the 1000s it's below the front sprocket, but on the smaller bikes it's above the front sprocket, and that's it right there. And there's a picture of me taking it off and getting ready to remove it and replace it with the new one. So that's where it is. That's what it looks like now. As you can see, there is a rubber seal on it, a rubber gasket. So whenever you replace it with the new one, you just got to make sure when you put it in there and bolt it down, you got to make sure you don't damage the rubber seal, or it will leak oil right there. So you just got to make sure you're careful with it when you put the new one on. Catch you guys later.